And I'm going to stop sharing. Go ahead, Gary.
Okay. Hi, everybody. As Linda mentioned, I am the political co-chair of the Loxahatchee group, and we are pleased to be having Javier Estevez speak tonight on all the good and the bad of the 2026 legislative session. Javi has been with the Sierra Club, Florida, since 2022, previously serving as the organization's operations and legislative coordinator. Born and raised in Miami, Javi brings a wealth of experience to his role, including a run for Florida State House in 2018, where he came within 417 votes of flipping a red district. He served his local DEC, the Democratic Executive Committee, as both legislative liaison and campaign chair from 2019 to 2021, and chair of the Miami-Dade LGBTQ plus caucus from 2022 to 2024. Take it away, Javi. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gary, and thank you, Linda, and thank you everybody for being here tonight, and for sitting around and hearing about our past legislative session that we just, not just fin well, kind of just finished with all the special sessions that came through. The one clear thing that I can say about it is that our progress has been incredibly clear for the last two sessions. This past session, we had our second lobby day where 17 volunteers helped us drop off over 50 packets and have conversations with members and staff in the legislature. The average grade for this past session for elected officials in the House and the Senate was a C, when in previous years we've had it either at a D or an F. So that's proof that our work with coalition members, elected officials, and our consistent outreach is helping us push forward our priorities. So to go over the supportive bills, mind you, this when I'm going over supportive and opposing bills, this is not an end all be all of all the bills that were introduced. We at a certain point before session really started going, we were following about 175 bills, and throughout session we start seeing which ones are moving, which ones are picking up steam, which ones are just being left behind. So by the end of the session, we really end up with a very slimmed down list of bills that we end up actually following and pursuing. So for our supportive bills, what was passed and signed was nature-based coastal resilience. We really worked this one on the Senate side, thanks to the Senate sponsor, Senator Ileana Garcia from Miami-Dade. That is going to bring not only gray matter coastal resilience to the forefront, but it's also adding in green matter that we really wanted to see in a previous bill that had been introduced the session before, and we didn't support it because it was only focusing on gray matter coastal resilience. Hyperscale data centers was a bill that wasn't moving at all until about a week and a half before session went into sine die. And then all of a sudden it rolled down like a boulder going down a mountain. And all of a sudden we had one of the best data center bills that has ever been introduced, especially by a Republican legislature in the country. And this one really focused in on consumer protections, making sure that overage costs on electricity and water usage and anything like that would not be pushed onto the consumer. One big thing that we lost in the process of getting this bill passed was the non-disclosure agreements between the local municipalities and the companies bringing in the data centers. The original bill would have taken non-disclosure agreements completely off the table, and any kind of like agreements or negotiations on data centers would have been had to have been alerted to any of the local municipalities right away. This continues to give it a year before that information is divulged to the public. That will be something that we go into next session. Hopefully, that we can build up on this bill that just passed. And then conservation lands, which was a bill that would ban land swaps in the state of Florida. This bill we were supportive of and pushing from the minute it was introduced. This was from our previous work in different areas of the state where members of Sierra Club Florida went up and really pushed back on some land swaps that were being proposed throughout the state. So this was a great bill. It passed both the House and the Senate unanimously, and it has been signed by the governor. Unfortunately, the tributaries of St. John's River did not pass either the House or the Senate. It had it had been up for a final vote in both chambers, but unfortunately, it seemed that there was some background games being played between senators and representatives, and the bill died due to that. There had been some monies dedicated for it in the budget, but once the budget had been finalized, all those monies had been taken out as well. So that's going to be something else that might pop up next session. So for the bills that we were opposing, the ones that did not pass, number one was cattle grazing on state lands, which would have put some of our state parks, which we had fought 2 sessions ago to protect from development, in danger of having cattle grazing on it. It passed the House, but it never moved in the Senate thanks to our work. So we were really excited about that. It's something to keep our eye on, because some people thought it was a great idea, which, it wasn't. And then blue ribbon projects, which would have been the biggest, most massive handout to the biggest developers, to like the 3 or 4 biggest developers in the state of Florida. We killed that bill. We were really worried about this bill. It looked like it was running toward the finish line toward the end of session. But due to huge opposition in the Senate from Republicans from smaller counties and more rural counties, this bill died on the Senate floor, and we were really, really excited to see that. The ones that were passed and signed, net zero policies by governmental entities. This, they really screwed us over on this one. It really came in under the radar. We had killed it in the Senate and we hadn't moved it in the House. But they added it on to the tax package in the last committee in the Senate. And then when it went to the floor of the Senate, they took out the tax package and just passed this by itself. It was really, really shady. It was really, really sneaky. It pretty much denies any local municipalities and counties from creating any new net zero policies in their counties and municipalities. And it also keeps any local governments that have net zero policies from spending any money on these items or on these policies that would bring net zero policies. Now, there is some give and take there. As long as it doesn't have net zero connected to it, they can still spend money on certain things. But it's just another way of telling local governments what to do and what not to do. And also, Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services was a bill that we had some issues with. It did pass and it was signed. Luckily, by the end of the process, a lot of the issues that we had with it were either taken out completely or were kind of resolved to a point where it was okay to go ahead and get passed. So what we're looking for at next session, we're looking to really push forward the reforms for 2 commissions, the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and the Public Services Commission. This last session, Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith from Orlando introduced a Senate Joint Resolution to reform the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. That was more of a messaging bill. There wasn't a House sponsor, but we're hoping to really push that in next session. And this electoral cycle, we're really going to be hammering the reforms that we need to see on the Public Services Commission. A lot of the reforms that we need on the PSC are going to help us with our affordability message and how we connect that with the environment this election cycle. So we're really hoping to put this part of our election messaging so that we go into next session with that as one of our top priorities. The land use regulations for local governments affected by natural disasters. This was SB 180 from 2 sessions ago, which has completely really affected a lot of local counties and cities that were in the path, or even a little bit farther from the path of recent hurricanes. Um, so the Senate had passed a fix to SB 180, but it was never taken up in the House. I don't know if it's going to be popping up next session. There are still a lot of local governments that have a huge issue with the changes that this bill has brought. So we'll have to have an eye out for that. And auxiliary containers. This past session was the first session that we had a good auxiliary containers bill. It was Senator Ileana Garcia that introduced it in the Senate. It actually would have put in a process for the whole state of Florida to have a level set banning of single-use plastics in the states. Unfortunately, the House sponsor wasn't really gung-ho about this. So we're hoping that Senator Ileana Garcia reintroduces this bill next session, and that we are going to find a House sponsor that's a little bit more excited about making sure that we have a single-use plastics ban in the state of Florida. Not fully, but at least a level set for all the counties to have, and then any other counties and local cities can go a little bit beyond what the state would have. And this year, after session, we've had 3 special sessions. The budget for fiscal year 2026 to 2027. Unfortunately, Florida Forever was effectively zeroed out, with funds actually being transferred to the Florida Wildlife Corridor Fund. And while we did not get the $100 million that we had requested for state parks repairs, there was $25 million given to the budget for specific parks in the state to start their specific repairs. And with the redistricting and property taxes, the legislature did redraw the maps targeting 4 specific districts and incumbents. One thing to remember, this was only for congressional districts for the US House. This had nothing to do with the state Senate and had nothing to do with the state House districts, which goes even further to prove that this was all in politics. This was not for anything other than pure politics and trying to bump up their numbers for the US Congress. Because there was an issue with the districts and how they were drawn in 2022, then they would have redrawn all of the districts and not just congressional. And also the last special session that just passed, a constitutional amendment question on repealing property taxes up to $250,000 of the home's value. And this would not be including school taxes. It will be on the ballot in November. So what's next? We are going to be facing a completely new Senate and House after the upcoming elections. We're losing some really strong senior level elected officials that supported us in a lot of our issues. And we're even losing some that weren't 100% on our side, but they were the ones that kept the bad bills from moving forward. All of these will have replacements that we need to start building relationships with now and going into session. We have started to build better working relationships with selected elected officials that are interested in introducing actual good environmental legislation. We will continue on this track and find ways of ensuring that they know that they have our support throughout the election cycle and going into the next session. Building up support is going to be really important. That's why if anybody on this call, anybody watching this video later on has any interest in any legislative efforts in Florida, then we need your help on our political work that we're going to be doing leading up to November. Our groups and the state political committee are actively in the process of endorsements for both the primary and general election races. Plans are being created to raise funds for our state PAC and also how to have groups effectively support endorsed candidates throughout the election cycle. One thing we've kind of gotten bogged down in the past, and this is going to be technically my second election cycle as political director, but also the first one was interim, so I don't really count that one. But we get bogged down in the whole fact of like, okay, we got the endorsements done, and then nothing else happens, right? We got to change that perception. Once we get the endorsements done, that's when the real work begins, and we need to get all these people elected. And also, all of this will be with a focus on how do we achieve our goals in the upcoming two legislative sessions. So for groups, in the 2026 election cycle, I've told them that their focus should be on endorsements, selecting key races, running endorsement processes, and endorsing key races and candidates, and using the electoral work that you do after the endorsements and leading up to the electoral cycle to recruit new members to your local groups. And on the chapter side, we're going to be really focused on voter targeting. We need to engage and turn out our target groups of voters that are likely to be swayed by an environmental message and electoral messaging. The more that we get our message out there, the more that we get our priorities out there, the more that we connect environmental issues to affordability for all Floridians, the more likely we are to go into the next legislative session and the one after that on the strongest footing that we've ever been on, and with the best possibility of actually passing better environmental legislation than we have in the last two sessions, which we have done so much more than we have in prior years. So I usually go through these presentations kind of quick because I like to open it up for questions and answers. I like to just stand here and just, take everybody's like questions and figure out like how to answer them best. But before we go in there, Linda, do I do the question now?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. So how much was given to state parks repairs in this year's budget?
We got something in the chat. Oh, it's a question. Come on, what can someone answer? How much money went to the parks for maintenance?
How much money did I say that they actually allocated to specific parks for repairs?
Okay. Up, little low, Carol. Anybody else? Good try though, Carol. That's going
Oh,
in the wrong direction.
I wish it was 54.
Okay, how about a hint? Starts with a two.
Yeah.
Well, we'll roll those cards over. Well, Carol is bound and determined to win those note cards. Okay, we're going to
You
start
you
going
are
high
so
and low.
warm. You are so warm.
Just a little below 28. Well, I guess what's a million, right? A couple million below 28. If people can't get in the chat, do they want to take themselves off of mute and guess? Okay, I guess the note cards are going to roll into next. Bruce, that was close. Javi, you want to give the correct answer?
25 million.
Yeah.
You guys were close. Thanks for playing.
And I slowed down at that part.
I know. Better luck next time. Okay. So thank you, Javi. Great presentation. Um, let's open it up for some other questions. There was a question in the chat before the answers, and it was, what environmental issues do you think are most likely to have popular support from a majority of voters and possibly legislators?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's been our number one priority. When I came into this position, I had said that the way that we go forward is finding environmental issues that we can really drive in the middle of both the left and the right. Luckily, I we got handed that on a silver platter like 3 years ago when Ron DeSantis announced the Great Outdoors initiative that would have developed in all state parks. And that, I mean, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to us because we were able to go out on the streets, protest like crazy, get elected officials' attention, and also start to talk to elected officials that we usually wouldn't have talked to before. And that's when we start letting them know, listen, we understand what the perception of Sierra Club Florida is, right? We understand it's very left-leaning. It's all, hooty dooty, tree huggers, all that stuff. We are willing to work with you if we agree on the end point, right? And that's what we've done, and that's what we did with the State Parks Preservation Act. That's what we did with conservation lands, nature-based coastal resiliency, data centers. These are all issues that if we find like that middle ground, we're able to work with legislators that we might never have talked to before. Um, so going into next legislative session, it's going to be anything that deals with affordability and protecting consumers, right? That's going to be election cycle. All we're going to talk about is affordability. And also the next legislative session is going to be about that. So number one is data centers. Every single candidate for governor has come out and said that we need a moratorium on data centers in the state of Florida, and we need to be more careful about building data centers in the state of Florida, and we need to protect consumers in the state of Florida against data centers. So that's something that we can use. Also, about renewable energy sources. One thing that I really want to push forward during this election cycle and going into next is how do we bring people's bills down? So that's PSC reform, making sure that they don't just willy-nilly approve FPL and Duke and all these rate hikes. And also balcony solar. How do we make it more affordable for people to use their own energy? Things like that it's not what I like to tell everybody every single session, right? We're not gonna say, oh, we're gonna have a clean energy goal of 0% by 2030, right? That's not gonna happen in the state of Florida. We're not there yet, right? But the little steps that we can take and good environmental bills that we pass every single year is going to lead us to that point.
Another question in the chat was, can you describe what exactly is the Public Service Commission? What's their
So the
job?
Public Services Commission is pretty much the commission that is appointed. All the members are appointed by the governor. They go ahead and look into issues with public services. Let that be water services, but also our utility services. And they are the ones that approve rate hikes when the electric companies want that, right? And there was just an article from Florida Phoenix this week saying that in the last 10 years, no attorney general has said no to any rate hikes from any of these utility companies, right? So at the end of the day, we're getting screwed and they're just like going bananas and getting more money every single year. Um, so that's something that we really want to focus on. And hopefully we're able to get an endorsement in one of these races where we have a candidate that's really strong in that issue.
Okay, let's take, Gary's got his hand up.
Yes, Javi, how aggressive? I have a couple questions that are all kind of related. How aggressive is the state chapter going to be getting involved in the governor's race and the United States Senate race? And also, since we hope that there'll be a blue wave coming, are there a lot of seats throughout the state that this crystal ball sees as flippable?
So anything federal, U.S. House races and Senate races are completely separate from us, right? Anything to do with the federal races, we have to use the national PAC and the national resources, everything like that. So when it gets like that, and they have very limited resources on their side, we try not to like jump in there. But what I'm hoping is that we have like a rising tide lifts all boats scenario here, where we really push forward some of these races in the state of Florida. And then those voters obviously see that those candidates also stand for our issues. So if you're voting for this, you should vote for them. Um, we are we have yet to decide how strong we're going to be going for all the statewide races. That's going to depend on polling and um, seeing all of that. There there will be a blue wave of some sort this year. Um, but if you remember the last two good years for Democrats in election cycles, that really hasn't shown up in the state of Florida, right? The that what if it's a blue tsunami, then it might be like a wave here. If it's a wave in the rest of the country, then it might be a puddle here, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that we have to see because at the end of the day, especially with the statewide races, we are still like if you're looking at just the red and the blue voter registration, that blue side is very, very much down while the red side has gains. So it's going to depend on where the NPA, where the independent and NPA voters go. That's where the decision is going to be made of who will win these races. We are looking at a lot of state house races where we can flip the numbers and just get closer to less of a super majority. But I also want to be clear. We are a nonpartisan organization. I have told all the political groups, all the political committees, send the questionnaires to everybody that is running for office. We want the best green candidate. We want the best environmental candidate. And we've seen that there are a lot of Republicans that want to work with us and are willing to introduce really good environmental legislation. Senator Ileana Garcia is one of them. Um, Representative Kendall was the one that really came up with the conservation lands bill. So she really pushed that. Um, Senator Ana Maria Rodriguez was the chair of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee, and she was super open to talking with us and making sure that the bills were fixed. So if we're able to discuss, we're able to build those relationships. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, as long as you're willing to, support our environmental issues, then we're willing to work with you on those. And those are
Okay.
everything else
Okay.
is,
Right.
we got to put our blinders on.
Okay, Gary, was that it, or did you have others?
Nope, that's it. Thanks,
Okay.
Javi.
Okay. Um, Chaz asked, what is the Sierra Club's position on increasing the homestead exemption?
Okay, so that position is currently under review. I had referred it to the political committee as of last night. The political committee has voted on it and is now going to the executive committee um for final approval. Since this is being recorded and it's going to be posted, I will not say which way we're leaning on, just in case that doesn't pass. But we are reviewing a position and deciding if we're going to take a position or not.
Thank you. So stay tuned, I guess.
Yes.
Um, Another question from Bruce. What could the state do to spur solar energy adoption for homeowners?
I think it's to make it so much less difficult for people to use the solar energy and to keep the solar energy. There's a lot of talk of like how FPL is doing so much work on creating solar energy, which they are, and Duke and everything like that. But the issue is how is it helping local residents and local and Floridians from actually using this and actually lowering their utility bills, right? And that's the thing that's always the disconnect, right? They want to use it for this. They're showing that it is cheaper and it is better to use, but then they don't want you to use it because then your bills are going to go down, right? And they get less revenue. So it's that back and forth. And another example of strange bedfellows that we found working together for the Public Services Commission, that was Senator Gates, right? Matt Gates' dad, former president of the Senate. Senator Gates is a huge, huge supporter of reforming the PSE. Like he has a huge issue with it. And FPL comes at him every single session that he tries to do it. Um, so we had a meeting with him and everything, and I was like, this is great. Like, let's do it. So we find friends in very odd places, but if you talk to people and you build up those relationships, you start figuring out, hey, we might the three of us might have the same goal here, and the two of us might have the same goal over here. So, let's figure out how we can work that out.
And I would also add solar on commercial properties. They've got
Hmm.
to make it easier there. We're
That's the whole
covered
thing.
with big box stores with nothing on their roofs.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it all comes down to profits, right? And especially in this state where we don't have just one utility company, but wherever the utility companies are, they got that monopoly, and there's nobody that's going to come in. And now we have NextEra coming in and buying up everything else. So there's going to be a lot of things coming up, and that's why I think, especially with the Attorney General's race, um, that's going to be an important one.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question? Well, I'll ask. Oh, wait. Greg is asking, is there an effort to draft a strategic plan that would encompass other environmental and wildlife organizations to tackle global stewardship and other issues?
I deal with Florida, baby, and that's all I deal with. If you remember, there was two years ago in Tallahassee, we were having our quarterly meeting, and we were getting ready for lobby days, and somebody goes, "What are we gonna do about Trump?" I'm like, "That's not my problem." I'm like, "Not my circus, not my monkeys," right? We what we're focused on is really getting some real progress done in the state of Florida, right? And what I like to do is like remind people, I understand that when you look behind you, you feel like the whole forest is on fire, right? And all you can see is the whole fire. But we have our bush right here that's on fire, and we need to put that out. And every single other organization, every single other person in the country, in the state, in the city is putting out, if we're all putting out our own individual fires, then little by little, that fire in the forest gets less and less and less. So that's what we're doing. But unfortunately, with like global issues and global environment issues, that's taken a real hit with the Trump administration. Their funds and their grants have been horribly dismantled and taken away. I have a lot of friends that lost their jobs just about like 3 months into the Trump administration because of all those with all the taking away of grants and everything like that. And it was all really, really focused on environmental organizations. So we're lucky not only to be part of Sierra Club where, it's not so many grants like that, but also the chapter, the Florida chapter, which we are a lot stronger than a lot of other entities, even separate from Sierra Club. Like put this chapter side by side to other organizations, like either statewide organizations or even nationwide organizations, and we are really, really strong at the moment. So we're just going to continue doing what we do and doing the work that we do, and hopefully we just keep on making progress little by little.
Okay, he's asking to refocus the question to be a strategic approach to Florida issues. So
Okay.
I think it's always been the case. We want to align with any other environmental and wildlife
Oh yeah.
organization.
Yeah, and every legislative session we have a conservation coalition that we meet with every Monday. We go over bills, we decide who's tackling what. We have a coalition of energy um organizations also, and even politically and electorally, I have a coalition of other organizations throughout the state that we partner up with and we help out. Because we all have our strengths, right? The one thing I know is that whenever they need people to show up, they call us. They're like, "Oh, we want to have a protest. Call Sierra Club." So we do partner up with other organizations and we make sure that we're all aligned um, and sometimes they're focused on one bill and we're focused on this one, but then that way, we spread the wealth and we make sure nothing's left unsaid.
And I would like to just add a quick shout out to the Loxahatchee group. I mean, the upcoming Energy Committee meeting, we're having a speaker from Oceana and also Surf Riders. And they're both strong environmental organizations, and they've chosen to come speak at a Sierra Club Energy Committee, not even a general meeting, but just the Energy Committee meeting. We partner with Native Plant Society, Mounts Botanical, Oleander Garden Club. I mean, we'll partner with anybody that has similar values.
Yep.
Does anyone have any other questions? What?
Oh, thank you, Bruce.
Thank you,
Anything else?
Javi. Thank you so much.
Now, thank you. And I'm sure that Gary and Linda have my email. So if anybody has any questions about anything legislative, we soon, not soon, but after the election cycle, we will be looking for members for our legislative advisory committee. If anybody's interested, that is the group that I go and I give all the boring information to, and they review the bills and they review the bill analysis, and we decide what we're gonna follow and what we're not, and if we're gonna support them or not. So that's one thing, and then also join your local political committee. Also, if anybody wants to join this chapter political committee, we have spots available. We need as many hands on deck as possible.
And plan on going to the legislative delegation meetings.
Yes,
Up in
yes, and the
Tallahassee.
delegation meetings.
Yes.
Oh God, it's never gonna stop. Yep.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you, Javi. Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone. We will
Thank
endeavor
you.
to get this put onto our YouTube channel and have a very pleasant evening.
All right. Happy Juneteenth.
Thank you. Yes, happy Juneteenth.